The battlefield was alive with fire and metal. A sky painted in red streaks from ships burning as they fell. Soldiers moved like shadows across the ruins. Human voices shouting orders mixed with alien roars. The war between humans and the empire of Zayari had stretched across the stars for years. But today's battle felt different. It felt like the end of something. Private Elias Kane pressed his body into the broken wall of a collapsed tower. Dust clung to his armor, and his pulse hammered like a drum inside his ears. The air smelled of smoke and blood, and each breath felt heavy, filled with heat. Above, the wreckage of starships rained down in pieces, fire lighting the sky like falling suns. He peeked out from cover and fired a short burst into the advancing enemy line. The Zayari soldiers were taller, stronger, their armor shimmering with alien metals that deflected bullets like water off stone. Still, Elias kept shooting, even when his rifle grew hot in his hands. Around him, his squad had been reduced to half its number. Some lay broken in the rubble. Others fought with blades after their ammunition ran dry. Humanity was cornered, yet no one stopped fighting. A sudden scream cut through the battlefield, different from the harsh cries of soldiers. It was high, sharp, and filled with fear. Elias froze. The voice did not belong to a soldier. His eyes searched the chaos until he saw her. Amid the clash of war, a young woman stood trapped. Her armor was unlike the soldiers'. It was ceremonial, glowing faintly with lines of silver light. Her long dark hair flowed wild against the flames, her face pale with shock. Two alien warriors closed in on her, their blades raised high. Elias recognized her from the intelligence briefings whispered among the troops. She was no ordinary captive, she was the Zayari princess. For a single heartbeat, he hesitated. She was the enemy. Her people had killed countless humans. She was the bloodline of the throne that had ordered this war. But then he saw her eyes bright with terror, unguarded, so different from the cold mask she wore in the holoscreens. She was going to die. His legs moved before his mind could catch up. Elias broke cover, sprinting across open ground. Blaster fire cut the air around him, shattering the rubble at his feet. The two alien warriors turned, surprised by the reckless human charging them. One brought his blade down with the speed of lightning. Elias didn't slow. He threw himself forward, putting his body between the blade and the princess. The strike came fast, burning pain tearing across his side as steel cut into flesh. He collapsed, his rifle falling from his grip, the taste of iron filling his mouth. The princess gasped, her hands trembling as the soldier who should have been her enemy shielded her with his life. The alien warriors pulled back, stunned for a moment by what had just happened. In that single second of hesitation, reinforcements arrived. Zayari guards in black armor rushed in, cutting down the attackers. Elias felt the ground hard beneath him, his vision blurring. The world around him was soundless, only the echo of his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He thought he would fade there, another nameless casualty in a war that had no mercy. But then soft hands caught him, steadying his head. Through his fading sight he saw her face above him, the princess. She was speaking, her voice shaking, but her words steady, filled with meaning he could not understand. He felt her press something against his wound, heat spreading across his body as strange alien light flowed into him. "You saved me," she whispered, her red eyes locking onto his. "By our law, by our blood, I owe you everything." Her words meant nothing to him in that moment. He only knew he had done what felt right. His vision darkened, but her face remained the last image in his mind. An enemy princess, fierce and beautiful, swearing something he did not yet understand. Elias woke slowly, his body heavy as stone. At first, he thought he was back in the ruins, bleeding out. But the air around him was different. It smelled of incense, sharp and sweet, not smoke and blood. He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling carved from pale crystal, glowing faintly as if the walls themselves breathed. He tried to sit up, but pain spread through his side, forcing him back. His armor was gone, replaced with a light robe, His chest was bandaged, glowing faintly with streaks of alien medicine. Confusion washed over him. He was alive. But where? A soft sound drew his attention. She was there, the alien princess. She stood near his bed, her long dark hair falling around her shoulders, her ceremonial armor replaced with a flowing gown lined in silver threads, her eyes, bright and glowing, fixed on him. "You should not move," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The blade nearly pierced your heart. Only our healers kept you alive." Elias blinked. "Why am I here? Why didn't you let me die?" Her gaze did not waver. "Because you took the blade for me. You gave your blood to save mine, among my people. Such a thing cannot be ignored. It binds us." He frowned, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Binds us?" The princess moved closer. She raised her hand, and Elias saw a mark on her wrist, a glowing sigil, still burning faintly red. "Our law is older than our empire. If the royal bloodline is saved, a life debt is created. I am bound to you now, until that debt is repaid. I belong to you." Elias stared, disbelief twisting inside him. He had fought for years, seen men die for scraps of ground, but nothing had prepared him for this. "I don't want you to belong to me," he said, shaking his head. "I only did what any soldier would have done." Her eyes softened, but her voice grew sharper. "You don't understand. This is not a choice. It is tradition. It is law. My council already knows. They will not accept it. They will resist. But they cannot break it. Only you can release me." The weight of her words pressed against him. A human soldier, sworn to an alien princess. It sounded like madness. His people would never trust her. Her people would never accept him. And yet, the way she looked at him carried no doubt. He tried to speak, but the sound of armored footsteps filled the chamber. The door slid open, and alien guards entered, their armor black and polished, their weapons sharp. Behind them walk older figures draped in robes, their faces lined with age and power. One stepped forward, his voice cold. "Princess Serenier, you dishonor the crown. This human is our enemy. His blood stains the hands of our dead. How can you claim a bond with him?" The princess straightened, her chin lifting high. "He saved my life. The bond is sealed. I will not deny it." The elder's face hardened. "Then you endanger us all. This soldier is a weakness. Release him, or we will take him." Elias tensed, his hand twitching as if searching for a weapon. But Serenier raised her hand, the sigil on her wrist burning brighter. "Touch him, and you defy the ancient law. You would not only defy me, you would defy our ancestors." A hush fell over the chamber. Even the guards shifted uneasily. The law was not something they could ignore. Elias realized then that his simple act of throwing himself in front of a blade had become something much larger. He was no longer just a soldier caught in a war. He was part of something sacred, something dangerous, the elders whispered among themselves before retreating. But the look in their eyes told him the truth. They would not forget. They would not forgive. When the doors closed, Serenia looked back at him. "Now you see, your life and mine are tied together. And from this moment, neither of us walks free of it." Elias leaned back against the bed, the weight of her words sinking into him like the blade had ours earlier. A life debt, a tradition older than their war. And somehow, he was at the center of it. For the first time since the war began, Elias felt something colder than fear. Fate had chosen him, and there was no turning back. The days that followed were strange for Elias. He was alive, but not free. Alien healers kept him in a chamber that felt more like a shrine than a hospital. The walls glowed with soft light, and the air was warm with the hum of energy flowing through hidden veins in the stone. Every time he tried to rest, he felt eyes on him. Guards stood outside the doors, their faces unreadable under black helmets. The princess came often. Sometimes she spoke to him. Sometimes she only sat in silence, her gaze fixed on the window that looked out across the alien capital. Fires from the recent battle still smoldered in the distance, black smoke rising into the skies. To her people, he was an enemy. to her, he was something far more complicated. Elias hated the way the guards looked at him, hated the whispers that followed him through the halls when he was strong enough to walk. He had not asked for this bond. He had not wanted to be the center of alien tradition. He only wanted to return to his unit, to fight with his people. One night, unable to sleep, he asked her directly, "Why do you keep me here? Why not let me go back to my army?" Serenier turned to him, her red eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Because the law binds me to you. If you die, I dishonor my blood. If you leave without my release, the bond remains unfinished. My council would call me weak. My enemies would call me cursed. They already whisper such things." Elias shook his head. "I'm no prince. I'm no savior. I'm just a soldier. I don't need this life debt." Her jaw tightened. "It does not matter what you need. It matters what is. You stepped in front of the blade. You bled for me. That choice tied us together. You may not want it, but you cannot erase it." Her words were sharp, but her eyes held something else, fear, not of him, but of the weight pressing on both of them. The next morning, the whispers turned into something more dangerous. As Elias walked with 2 guards to the courtyard for air, a flash of steel cut across the path. A blade hissed past his face, missing by inches. One of the guards fell with a cry. Blood dark against his armor. Elias spun, his soldier's instinct kicking in. He grabbed the fallen guard's weapon just as a shadow rushed from the columns. Another assassin lunged, but Elias fired, the blast throwing the attacker against the wall. More shadows moved, quick and silent, and then she appeared, Serenier herself, running into the courtyard, her gown trailing behind her. Her guards closed around her, weapons raised. The assassins vanished into the darkness, leaving only silence and the smell of burned stone. Elias stood there, chest heaving, weapons still hot in his hands. He met her eyes, and in them, he saw the truth. This wasn't just about tradition. This was about power. Someone wanted him dead not only because he was human, but because his bond with her threatened the balance of her empire. Later, in the safety of her chamber, Serenier faced him. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "Do you see now why I cannot release you? They fear what you represent. They will keep coming until one of us is gone." Elias set the weapon aside, his shoulders heavy. "And if I refuse, if I walk away?" Her expression hardened. "Then they will kill you, and when you die, my people will call me faithless. The bond will break in shame. I will lose everything. You think you don't matter, Elias, but you do, to me, to them, to the war itself." He didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth sat heavy in his chest. He had not asked for this bond, but it was real. The assassins had proved it. His survival was no longer just about him. It was about her, her crown, and the fragile line between 2 warring species. That night, as he lay awake, Elias realized something he hated to admit. He was no longer fighting just for his people. He was tied to hers now, whether he wanted it or not. Elias returned to strength quicker than anyone expected. The alien medicine worked faster than human doctors could dream of, sealing wounds and rebuilding torn muscle. But with each day of healing, the unease in the holes grew worse. He felt the eyes of alien nobles follow him, some filled with hate, others with fear. They whispered as he passed, their voices low but sharp. To them, he was not a man, he was a disruption to centuries of order. Princess Serenier stayed close, too close for his comfort. Wherever he went, she walked at his side, speaking to him as if he were her equal. He had saved her, yes, but he had not asked for her company. Every step beside her only painted a larger target on his back. One morning, he stood at the palace balcony, looking out over the alien capital. Silver towers rose high into the clouds, and skyships drifted like birds above them. But below the beauty, tension burned. Banners hung with the crest of the crown, yet riots stirred in the lower districts. The people had heard of the bond. Many did not accept it. "Your people hate me. Elias said quietly. Serenia stood beside him, her gown flowing like liquid metal in the wind. She did not look away. Some hate me for binding myself to you, but others see hope. They believe if our blood can be tied, then peace might be possible. Elias gave a bitter laugh. Peace? My commanders wouldn't agree. If they learn of this bond, they'll see it as a trick, a trap. Her eyes narrowed. And what do you see it as, Elias? A trap? Or a chance to end something greater than either of us? He didn't answer. He couldn't. His heart told him one thing, but his soldier's mind told him another. That evening, his answer came in the form of a message. A human scout ship had been captured near the edge of the city. Its crew had been taken alive, and word spread quickly. The palace gave Elias permission to meet them, believing perhaps his presence might calm the humans. When Elias entered the holding chamber, the sight of his own kind nearly broke him. Dirty, tired, but alive, 3 soldiers in ragged armor stared at him in shock. One of them, Lieutenant Hayes, stepped forward, anger burning in his eyes. Kane, he spat the name like it was poison. What in hell are you doing here? We thought you were dead. Elias felt the weight of their stares. I nearly was, but I was saved. Saved? He sneered. His gaze shifted to Serenia, who stood behind Elias, calm but unyielding. By her, you've gone native. You're standing beside the enemy, princess, while our men rot in trenches. It's not like that, Elias said quickly. I didn't choose this bond, I only bond. He's cut in, his voice full of disbelief. They told us about it. You tied yourself to her, a life debt. Do you have any idea how this looks to us, to command? You've betrayed everything you swore to. The words hit harder than any blade. Elias clenched his fists, but he didn't move. Serenia stepped forward, her voice cold. Careful with your words, human. He is alive because he was chosen. Your anger cannot change that. Hayes laughed bitterly. Chosen? He's being used. You think we'll let him return? You think command will accept this? No. When word spreads, they'll call him traitor. And if he dares to come back, they'll put a bullet in his skull. Silence filled the chamber. Elias felt the walls closing in on him. On one side, the princess and her empire. On the other, his own people who now saw him as lost. When the meeting ended, he walked the palace halls in silence, Serenia at his side. She did not speak until they were alone. Do you see now? She asked softly. You belong to neither world, but together, we can carve a new one. Elias looked at her, torn. Part of him wanted to believe her. Part of him longed for the simplicity of being only a soldier again. But that life was gone. Both sides had made sure of it. And for the first time, he wondered if his sacrifice on that battlefield had not saved her life, but had instead stolen his own. The palace halls grew colder. With each passing day, rumors spread like fire, and whispers reached every corner of the capital. A human soldier bound to the princess was not just scandal, it was danger. Nobles muttered of curses. Priests warned of broken traditions, and generals spoke openly of betrayal. Elias felt it every time he walked through the great halls. Eyes followed him, sharp with hate. His hand often strayed toward the hilt of a blade, though he knew steel alone would not silence their doubt. At last, the council made its move. They demanded proof. The bond, they said, could not be honored unless the human proved himself in combat. The law was old, and its words were clear. The one who holds the royal life debt must stand in trial to show strength equal to the burden. Elias did not seek glory, but choice was not his. If he refused, Serenia would lose her crown. If he fought, he risked death on alien soil. The trial was set in the circle of blades, an ancient arena carved into the rock of the mountains. Thousands gathered, their voices echoing as banners of black and silver waved in the wind. The ground of the circle was stained from centuries of battles fought in honor or revenge. Elias stood at the center, the sun burning hot on his shoulders. He wore simple armor, patched together by alien smiths. In his hand, a sword, not a human rifle, but a weapon of their tradition, Its blade glimmered with alien metal, sharp enough to split stone. Across from him stood his challenger, a Zayari, warlord draped in crimson armor. The alien was twice his size, muscle-colored underscales that shone like steel. His blade was a massive greatsword, and his roar shook the air as he stepped forward. The crowd fell silent. Elias's heart pounded, but he forced his breath steady. He had fought in trenches, in ruins, against monsters in armor. This was no different. Only everything was. The warlord charged, his blade crashing down with the force of a falling star. Elias rolled aside, the ground exploding where he had stood. Dust and stone flew into the air. He came up swinging, striking at the warlord's side. But the alien armor turned the blow like glass against iron. The crowd jeered. Again the warlord struck, and again Elias barely dodged, his body moving on instinct. Pain flared in his shoulder as the blade grazed him, tearing blood. He staggered, but refused to fall. From the stance, Serenia rose to her feet. Her voice rang out, strong and clear. Do not fear. Elias, you are more than they believe you are, more than they want you to be. Her words cut through the roar of the crowd. Studying him, he focused, eyes narrowing. Size was strength, but also weakness. The warlord's blade was heavy, his swings wide and slow. Elias waited, breathing, watching. The warlord lifted his sword high for another crushing strike. At the last moment, Elias stepped in close. Too close for the great weapon to swing. His blade flashed, cutting across unguarded flesh beneath the alien's arm. The warlord roared in pain, stumbling back. The crowd gasped. Elias pressed the advantage, striking again, his sword biting deeper this time. The alien dropped to one knee, rage twisting his face. He raised his blade for one final desperate strike. Elias drove his sword forward, piercing the warlord's chest. The great alien fell, crashing into the dust with a sound like thunder. Silence filled the arena. Then, slowly, the crowd began to roar, not in anger, but in awe. The human had stood, and the law had been satisfied. Serenia stepped down into the arena, her gown sweeping across the dust. She came to his side and raised his hand high. He is bound to me, she declared, her voice carrying to the furthest seats. He has fought, he has bled, and he has won. Deny him, and you deny our law, deny our people. The crowd's roar grew louder, but not all voices joined. In the shadows of the arena, Elias saw cold eyes watching, full of hate. He knew the trial had not ended the danger. It had only proven one thing: he was now more than a soldier. He was a symbol, and symbols, he realized, were the most dangerous things in war. The trial had ended, but peace did not follow. For every cheer that had filled the arena, there were whispers in the dark, voices plotting, daggers sharpening. Elias fell to everywhere he walked. Some bowed to him as the one who carried the princess's bond. Others spat at his feet when guards were not looking. War still burned at the edge of the empire. Human fleets pressed closer, and the Zayari Council demanded Serenia cut ties with the tainted soldier and prepare for final battle. But Serenia refused. She stood before them and declared the bond unbroken, her voice unshaken though her throne trembled beneath her. One night, word came of a disaster. A human fleet had been lured into a trap near the Crystal Rift, a place of violent storms and shifting space currents. The Zayuri planned to destroy them utterly, an act that would end any chance of peace. Elias heard the whispers, saw the maps, and knew what it meant. If the trap closed, his people would be lost. If he stayed silent, the bond would protect him, but his own race would burn. When he told Serenia, her eyes darkened. If you warn them, you betray us. If you stay, you betray yourself. Either way, you choose. He stared at her, torn in two. And if I go, if I lead them out of the trap. Her voice broke for the first time since he had known her. Then, you may not return. The currents will tear you apart, or my people will kill you for treason. You would give your life for both sides. He almost laughed, bitter and hollow. That's all I've been doing since the day I stepped in front. of that blade. In the end, Elias made his choice. He took a stolen craft. Guided by maps Serenier gave him in secret, she stood at the hangar as he left, her eyes burning like fire. She said no words of goodbye, only pressed her hand against his chest, the mark of the bond glowing between them. The rift was chaos. Storms of light ripped across space, tearing ships apart like paper. Elias flew through it with hands steady, his body screaming from strain as currents slammed into the hole. He broke through enemy lines, sent warnings to the human fleet, and turned their course before the trap closed. But the Zayari fleet saw him. Their fire rained down, scorching his ship. Alarms screamed, panels burst in flame. Elias pushed harder, his only thought to finish the message. His ship cracked, broke, and fell into the storm. The humans escaped. Back in the palace, Serenia stood. Before her council, news of the failed trap had spread, and with it, whispers of Elias's sacrifice. Some called him traitor. Others called him savior. Serenier silenced them with a single truth. He chose both worlds, she said, her voice steady though her heart ached. He gave his life so neither side would be destroyed. You call him human, I call him ours. Her words carried through the empire, through the war, through the stars. The bond that had once been seen as weakness became a symbol of something greater, not chains, but choice, not division, but unity. Months later, at the border where war had first begun, the first fragile peace talks opened. Human envoys stepped into Zayari halls. Guarded but curious, at the center of it stood Serenia, her wrist still marked with the glowing sigil of the bond. When asked why she honored a dead human's memory, she only said, because he lived as more than soldier, more than enemy. He lived as the bridge we never thought possible. And though Elias Kane's body was lost to the storms of the rift, his name became legend on two worlds. A man who took the blade meant for a princess, and in doing so, carved a future neither race could have built alone. The bond was never broken. It lived on, not as law, but as hope.